Hey guys, welcome to Functional Medicine Explained. I am joined with our first guest for the YouTube channel, and Jody Alperin is here with us. Thank you, Jody, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Jody is my friend, first and foremost, but she's also a licensed clinical psychologist, and we oftentimes banter about mental well-being. And I think it's important as part of my efforts of education, not just to focus on nutritional benefits and to broaden the idea of functional medicine to mental wellness. And we know that certainly having self-care strategies are important, but it's not a replacement for a relationship with a mental health care professional, and also medications, which can help for a lot of mental conditions. But I think it's also important that we focus on self-care strategies, things that we can do on our own to improve our mental wellness. So I have Jody here today to talk about panic attacks and anxiety, and I'm really happy to chat with her. So we're going to talk today about 5 hacks to stop a panic attack. But first, a question for you, Jody. So why did the panic attack need to leave his partner?
No idea.
Need a little breathing space.
Oh.
All right, so first off, let's talk about panic attacks. What are panic attacks?
So panic attack is when your central nervous system gets activated, when there's some perceived danger and your body reacts to prepare itself for that. And it does so by either creating a fight, flight, or freeze response. And when somebody has a panic attack, for their body to get prepared for that perceived danger, and I say perceived because our bodies are programmed to do that for real danger, but it occurs when we think that there's danger also. And so when the central nervous system gets activated, you'll start to notice things like your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. Your muscles get tense. You might get a little lightheaded. People talk about sometimes experiencing tingling in their appendages. And then in extreme cases, of course, feeling like you're going to have a heart attack or you're going to die.
Yeah, no, in the emergency room, I've run into panic attacks quite often, and I did some research on this, and say about 11% of people actually suffer from a panic attack every year. And just in general, I think maybe some rest of us may not go through panic attacks, but still deal with anxiety. Do you think there's a little bit of overlap between panic attacks and just incapacitating anxiety? Is there a spectrum in this?
Oh, absolutely. I also think that even people that experience panic attacks will talk about sort of like, that was a really bad one, or I started feeling like I might have a panic attack. So sure, absolutely.
So I think like understanding it and kind of dealing with anxiety is something that would benefit everybody, not just people who have a clinical diagnosis of panic disorder.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go into some 5 hacks here about stopping panic attacks. I want to throw the hack at you, and I want you to give me your take on the hack, okay? So we're going to start with hack number 1. So deep breathing exercises. What's your thought about deep breathing and panic attacks?
So deep breathing is probably the first thing that I recommend for people when they have a panic attacks or when they're experiencing a lot of anxiety. And the reason for that is what I just was explaining to you, which is that when people are anxious, their breathing changes. Their inhalation becomes much longer and their exhalation becomes shorter. So they're hyperventilating. And that only increases the body's response to that perceived danger. So in order to counteract that, what we want to do is we want to take shorter inhalations and longer exhalations and slow the breathing down. So I don't know if you want me to demonstrate that or...
Sure. Well,
okay,
let me ask this.
Okay.
There's an idea about box breathing. Tell me about what that means.
Okay, so box breathing is another breathing technique that can be very helpful. It's easy to remember, so that's part of why I think it's very helpful. And it basically involves breathing in to a count of 4, holding that breath for a count of 4, exhaling to a count of 4, and then holding sort of the absence of breath for a count of 4. And you just do that over and over again. And you can actually do the visualization involved with that too. So that helps as well.
All right. And then you mentioned before about inhalation versus exhalation. Is there a certain amount of time you'd inhale versus exhale if you're going to just have a simple inhale exhale strategy on
I think you have to do whatever you are comfortable with. Obviously different people have different lung capacities, but I think if you are inhaling to a count of 6 and exhaling to a count of 8, it doesn't have to be hugely different, but just sort of something along those lines.
Okay. All right, next hack, grounding techniques. So the whole idea of grounding is to help kind of keep you in the present. And I heard this strategy about this 5 sense countdown. Can you tell me a little bit about what that entails?
Yeah, so in order to feel more grounded, what you want to do is you want to activate your senses. You want to be more present. And so that means thinking about your 5 senses and then really activating them I think often it's very helpful to sort of say this out loud. So you might say, 5 things that you see, and you say it out loud. I see a picture, I see a stained glass, I see some fruit, whatever, you go through the 5. Then 4 things that you can feel or touch, right? And so these can be things that are like, I feel the chair beneath my legs, I feel the jacket against my skin. Again, saying it out loud can be very helpful. 3 things that you hear. So, I hear the wind, and noticing these things. A lot of times we don't even notice these things in our everyday life. So it really...
Yeah, as you say, I feel like I should be doing this even when I'm not having anxiety,
Yeah.
just to be more aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it can be extremely helpful for lots of other reasons. And then, 2 things that you smell and 1 thing that you taste. And so going through that, and you can do that multiple times. I mean, sometimes it takes a while to do it. So you could go back to 5. Okay, 5 different things, or it can be the same things. Again, saying them out loud.
Do you find from your experience with patients that whether it's they have to do multiple strategies, like can they just go with that grounding technique, the deep breathing, do you do it together? How do people usually employ these things?
I mean, I think everybody's different. It's kind of like what they're most comfortable doing. I don't think you have to do this and you have to do that. It does help to practice some of these things, especially when you're not anxious.
Makes sense.
And some of it also too is like, what kind of person are you? Are you someone that likes to visualize things? Do you like to be sort of more present in your body? It has to be something you feel comfortable doing. But again, practicing it on a regular basis will help.
All right. Next thing. So the ice cube or cold water immersion. So what's your thoughts about this?
I'm not sure what the physiological explanation is, but for especially extreme anxiety, it's kind of like shocking your system, right? Or putting your face in cold water or something like that. I think, I've heard that can be very helpful for a panic attack.
Yeah, so I read a little bit about this, and they talked about distracting techniques like holding an ice cube or putting a cold washcloth over the back of your neck. And my thought from my own emergency medicine experiences, when we have patients with extreme arrhythmias, with heavy tachycardia, or even babies who can get in this rhythm where they have an extraordinarily fast heart rate, one of the ways we break it out of them is to immerse their face in an ice bath. And that sudden impact can cause a vagal response, which will slow your body down and reset your heart rate. So I kind of feel personally, if someone's having a panic attack, they need an intense stimuli, and probably a cold washcloth in the back of the neck's probably not going to be enough, but maybe putting your hands or even your face in a nice cold bath might do the trick. But it sounds like you haven't had any experience with patients doing this.
I haven't. I mean, obviously you also have to have access to water and ice,
right.
But I think it sounds like it could be very powerful, especially for an extreme anxiety attack, when maybe, like you were saying, it's not so easy to necessarily get into your head and start thinking, okay, what should I be doing right now?
Okay. All right. Well, let's going on to the senses. Let's talk about the 4th hack, which is ingesting sour candy or spicy food. I know we talked about this before. It seemed like really interesting to you.
Yeah, I think I actually saw a TikTok about this. Somebody said get a warhead and suck on it. And again, I'm not sure of the physiological response, but I think part of it can be that it also engages your senses. And so it makes you very aware of kind of that taste. And then you're not really thinking about what else is happening in my body.
I'm getting a sense with all these hacks and really with the acute management of panic attacks is distraction. And again, getting a intense feeling, whether it's, we don't obviously want to incur pain, but some sort of discomfort from a food or just unusual sensation might distract us and kind of break the circuit that's causing us to be in this panic response.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So last thing is acupressure or massage techniques. Any experience with this?
I mean, there are a lot of therapists that actually employ these techniques, and some specialize in that area. I don't particularly know a lot of them. I think you said that.
So my wife's big into this. There's a couple of pressure points which can be helpful. I don't suffer personally from panic attacks, but certainly my wife, when she's stressed out, she certainly employs some of these techniques. And some of the places that she goes to, the top of the head, just making a circular motion, the webbing between your first and second finger, the connection between I think it's a little hard to get to, but where the neck meets the shoulders, some gentle circular pressure there, between the first and second toe, the web space there, which again, taking your shoes off, depending where you are, and rubbing your toe might attract a little bit of attention. But, and then the, between your eyebrows, that's another option.
Oh, interesting.
So, I don't know, maybe next time one of us is stressed out, we'll try it out for ourselves and see if it works.
Sounds good.
So, I guess one of the things I want to end this with is that it's great to have all these techniques and strategies, but in the moment, you're not really thinking, your brain's short-circuiting, you're not really thinking how I'm going to solve the problem. So I do think it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, which is really visualization. Coming up with, like, if I have a panic attack, if I'm suffering from intense anxiety, what is my plan? And, in my world, in the emergency medicine world, when we have a code, we often have to go on autopilot when there's an emergency because our brain is not thinking so clearly because the stress levels are up. So mnemonics are helpful in situations like that. So I came up with a little quick mnemonic. I want to know what you think of it.
Okay.
It's called My Simple Choices Ground Balance. So my for massage, simple for spice, choices for cold, ground for grounding techniques, and balance for breathing. What do you think?
I think it sounds great.
All right. Well, I appreciate you for coming on. This has been really interesting to me. Hopefully everybody got some value out of it. And if you have questions or comments about panic attacks, anxiety, I'm going to direct all the comments to Jody, and maybe we'll have her again if there's a topic people want to talk about. But it was really nice to have you as my first guest in the podcast.
Oh, it's been great to do it. Thank you.
Okay.